lot happening in Nigeria, in Kenya, in Uganda, in Zimbabwe, in Ethiopia, and of course, in Tigray. And of course, today, the discourse is looking at the continent. We're so excited to have a very special guest joining us live from Nairobi, Kenya. And it is because we're talking about something that bothers every African, and that has to do with African unity. Keep in mind, it was only recently the world got this very discomforting news about the airport, that is almost being taken over by the Chinese, if that hasn't actually happened. And of course, just at every point in time that the continent is excited about having a leader, something untoward happens to that leader. And we'll also be looking at that and also talking about the late President Magufuli to also see if that was also a big loss to the continent. And wherever you are at the moment, welcome to the discourse. I'm Sulaiman Alede, and today my guest is Dr. David Masanga, and he joins me live from Nairobi. Dr. Masanga, good to have you, and thanks for your time.
Thank you very much, listeners across the continent of Africa and across the globe. Those watching us, this is Radio 97.3 right in Lagos. I am very happy. Lagos reminds me of Baba Tafawa Balewa. Lagos reminds me of the leaders of Africa. They called for African unity. So I'm very happy this evening to talk to Africa, to the continent of Africa, to the entire world about the African unity.
You know, I'll tell you something, Dr. Masanga. One of the key things, the moment we sent the message out late last night saying that you'll be coming on the program, about two lecturers, of history and African history specifically, did say they have asked all their students to tune into the program to listen to you. So I'm more excited because you've had what I call one-on-one experience with some of these leaders, especially those that are no more. But again, first of all, take us through how it all began. This whole talk about African unity. How did we come about the OAU, which is now the African Union? Let's start by looking at the ideals that moved to this, that propelled the leaders then to setting up the OAU.
Thank you very much, listeners. As you know very well that the post-colonial era needed an engine to go ahead. What was the engine? The engine was unity. Kwame Nkrumah, Haile Selassie, Jomo Kenyatta, Milton Obote, Gabriel Nasser, Benabera, Nyerere, Kaunda, Sekou Touré, and many others thought of this unity. Nkrumah said, and he was telling people that if we are not united, if we don't seek political unity, we shall be divided by economic unity. And that has come back to haunt us today. 66 years of independence after Ghana got the first independence in Africa from the colonial master. We still don't have an engineer in Africa. We don't have an army. We don't have a standing army that can go in an African standing army. Forget about ECOWAS army. Forget about East African Community Rapid Force. We still rely on American AFRICOM to police us where to go. We would solve the problems in Libya. We would be solving the problems in Sahara, Southwest Sahara, Morocco occupation of Southwest Sahara. The Sahara region is full of problems. Africa does not have an army. But those founding fathers in 1963 thought of one way out. And that one way out was to create Organization of African Unity. And they said, let's use it as a vehicle, as a train that will deliver us to the destiny of an African integrated Africa. An integrated Africa could pose a very big threat to the metros of Europe. One of the reasons and one of the obstacles that our African Union has found, which later on was called African Union, Gaddafi came on board, is one of the second generation generals. You remember after the movement of the African Union, the generals sat down, the metros of Europe, France, Israel, Britain, America, and so many other countries started plotting to overthrow governments because they saw they were losing to popular leaders like Obote. The first coup occurred in Ghana in 1965 against Kwame Nkrumah, because Kwame Nkrumah was the spearhead. Patrice Lumumba had already been killed. That one did not even enjoy the prime ministership. It is a sad story that the Belgians brought Patrice Lumumba's body in 2020. You remember? We have been crying for Patrice Lumumba's body to be given to us, to bury. Maybe if we buried Patrice Lumumba's body in Congo, Congo's conflicts will be over. Until last 2020, they said they have the body. Look at how many years, from 1961, the assassination of Patrice Lumumba, after Nkrumah intervening in the DRC Congo, which is now Congo, which is called DRC, which was called Zaire, and the Congo Kinshasa, and telling Patrice Lumumba, please, leave lying dogs to sleep, or whatever, lying dogs to lie, or whatever. He said, my brother, don't tackle these people. Because Nkrumah was sharp. Nkrumah saw, but you saw relatives, among relatives of Nkrumah, they were paid money, and they came down for Nkrumah. You saw in your own country, General Aronsi, where he came down and they created a military after military. They never wanted us to stabilize. They never wanted Nigeria to stabilize.
Let me comment here, because you've been able to set, the pace for us. You talked about the first coup on the continent in Ghana. You have also said something about one great African leader, Patrice Lumumba. You've also said something about Aguiyi Ironsi. You're looking at these coups. It will be hard for a lot of people. When you say they, are we talking about fellow Africans taking out fellow Africans or destabilizing the continent, or some external hands or forces outside the continent?
I will take a case study by case study. The 1965 Ghana coup was external forces, the Cold War, Russia versus America, Britain versus Russia, that brought up a coup, and they came and they paid a general in the Ghanaian army to overthrow Nkrumah, because Nkrumah was a leftist. Nkrumah wanted to see social justice. Nkrumah wanted to bring social justice among Ghanaians. And the former colonial masters had a hangover over Ghana. They said, once this man brings in the policies, nationalization of industries, to make sure that industries produce for the people, we are going to lose our capital. We shall lose our material supplies, the raw materials flowing into the metros of Europe. Do you remember that a shirt like the one you are wearing used to be transported to Manchester? That's why I hate Manchester United team. I don't like to see it. I'm sorry. I die with Liverpool, and those supporters of Manchester on this radio station, don't kill me.
Dr. Masanga, I'm happy you've already told them. Don't kill Dr. Masanga. He's not a fan of Manchester United.
I'm a fan of Liverpool. Why? I will tell you why Liverpool is my football club. Because when you go to Liverpool, is where you see the history of a black man. How a black man has suffered under the chains of the imperial agencies that shipped him from Jamaica to Liverpool, Liverpool back to Jamaica, All these type of things have happened in Liverpool. I have been a Liverpool supporter for 45 years. And today I'm happy. Whether it loses, I will keep quiet and win again.
And you walk alone.
I don't walk alone. I always walk with somebody. So I am here. And let me bring you back to the topic.
All right, then.
Very interesting. Why I hate Manchester is our shirts, the cotton, this cotton I'm wearing, was transported from Uganda and manufactured in Manchester. And the shirt brought back to be sold to us in Ibadan University, or Ibadan Enugu University. All those universities have traveled. By the way, I know Nigeria better. I've traveled Nigeria wide. I know most of the places. So you look at what was happening to us. A colonial master does not leave you to go, does not surrender you. He always gives you conditions. He follows to take your material. A first coup occurred. They came from Nkrumah. Then later on, Nigeria arrived with General Aronzi. You asked a question whether these people acted alone or not. No, they did not act alone. They acted with traitors. We have internal homegrown traitors who are still very available on African continent. One of them, I don't want to talk on this television, you know him. I don't like him. And if you bring that subject of Ethiopia, I will tell the world what he does. But I am going to be very moderate today. We have such homegrown traitors who have betrayed Africa. Then they went several other coups, several other countries. Uganda, 1971, just only 9 years after independence, we were struck with one of the most terrible coups. I was going to senior secondary school one in 1971. I remember my father leaving me on the road and saying the taxi man, the driver, to drop me at school, which I didn't know, because he was one of those being looked for by Idi Amin troops. So I have suffered from there, 1971, the coup. So these coups had internal traitors. Idi Amin was an internal traitor. But who sponsored the coups? MI6, Dr. Teddy Heath, the former prime minister. He was open. Read at his books. The good thing right now in London, we can pick up this history and nobody will lie you. The history is there. You go to the archives and you will find that Dr. Edward Heath, the former prime minister, the late prime minister of Britain, ordered for the coup in Uganda. And we are overthrown. Amin cut us to pieces, cut our tongues. Like me now, if I'd been in Idi Amin's regime, my tongue would be eaten by him. He was really a cannibal. He cannibalized people. He ate people.
So sorry to cut you. I think you should know better. So some of these things we read or we watched in movies about late Idi Amin, are they true? When you say is he truly a cannibal? Was he?
Yes, he was. Idi Amin was a cannibal. A cannibal. He's cannibal. He's a cannibal. He ate people's tongues. If you're a professor, if you have got a PhD and you are very sharp, he would order for your tongue to be brought in a fridge. When we stormed Kampala in 1978, we found these fridges in the State Research Bureau. We found them in the intelligence systems. They ran away and left most of the people, dead bodies behind, people whom we had been looking for. We fled them out of the jails. I'm not a civilian here. And maybe your leaders there, like Buhari, should know I'm not a civilian. And they should not threaten people on the African continent. I'm the Rawlings left here. You know, I'm the Rawlings of Africa. And I will speak my mind out. We have had enough bad problem for this continent. And we have a problem which we must solve. Yes.
Yeah, sorry to cut you there, because that's the whole essence why we're here. We need to solve the problem. And one of the key things, Dr. Masanga, is looking at Africa. We talked about the OAU, and you also talked about the having a strong army or strong military, which we haven't actually seen with the OAU or with the AU. And a whole lot has been happening on the continent. But first, let's look at the economic issues now, which has also put Uganda in trouble. It was only recently some politicians in Nigeria were warning the country, asking the country to be so clear in Nigeria about the Chinese loans. And today, the news is that the Chinese language, the Mandarin, is being spoken, is being used in some parts of Uganda, and now it has also come to places like the airport. Tell us exactly the latest situation when we see, news items like that. Have they taken over the airport?
I have not verified the information as to whether the airport has been taken, but I just want to tell you that it would not be long before Africa's airports, and not only Uganda. So don't laugh at us as Ugandans. Laugh at yourselves. You might also be sitting on an airport in Lagos, which is not yours. In Abuja, in all check as people in Africa, we must check. There is nowhere in Africa where Chinese have not penetrated. We removed the colonial master who were the Western powers. We brought in a master who comes with his cash and his workforce, the army. Have you ever had a corruption case in any Chinese project? Do you know why?
Tell us.
All the people who work as Chinese are soldiers. They are trained. You touch one of them. One of them can fight 10 Nigerian big soldiers, those ones who are seated in the barracks. They don't go and fight Boko Haram. He can beat them. Or Ugandans. For us Ugandan soldiers, we go out. We have gone to Somalia. We beat them. We go to everywhere. But one Chinese or two Chinese police cannot arrest them. We have seen battles here on TV. You have seen some of the clips where two Chinese fight a whole bunch of police. They can't put them in a van. So we replaced the Western powers with Chinese neo-colonialists. Actually, they are now neo-colonialists. How are they colonizing us? They are colonizing us because, one, the Americans give you money for a road, or the British give you money for the road, but they follow with books. Have you noticed that in every place where you go in a hotel, you find Africans with badges and books? They are eating your money. There's a project. They have been called to eat the money in that hotel. So by the time you build the road, the only money left for the road is about 3/4. A quarter of the money has been eaten on sensitization projects, analysis, this and that, and so many hotel bookings. So there is that danger. The Chinese come with their money. The general manager is a major general in the army, in the Red Army. Honestly. And they said they will give you money through Exim Bank. Exim Bank carries hard cash. They only need you to do paperwork. They have their own people. In fact, by the time you ask for paperwork, the Minister of Finance of any country in Africa just goes to read to say this is correct. How did you know? They have copied everything. They know what they do. And they say now, if you want cement, the Chinese come, the general or the captain or the corporal or the sergeant or lieutenant colonel is in charge of buying cement. There is no corruption. So they buy the cement, they build these roads economically. They don't have any corruption scandal. I've seen them in Kenya. And the language, you are talking of Mandarin being spoken in so many parts. You have to speak Mandarin in order to drive the train. How are you going to communicate with your instructor? We have a very good example in Kenya. The Kenyan railway you can now go to Kenya, to Nairobi, from Nairobi to Mombasa is only 4 hours. It used to take us 8 hours. If you are lucky to arrive, if you have not been killed by an accident. Now, you have to speak Mandarin in order for you as an engineer to take over the Chinese who is going to leave the train in your hands. So that is happening, it's true. But about Entebbe Airport,
yes,
I don't have.
David Masanga, sorry again to cut you. I'm trying to see what we can cover in this hour. But this is where we come in, Africans, you, myself, and everyone listening. It looks to me as if the African does not also, relate to other Africans in terms of peer review mechanism, exchange of ideas, exchange of knowledge. What stops the Ugandan, asking, for help from perhaps Libya, and what stops Nigeria giving help to any other country, vice versa? The continent still looks, outside the continent. Why is that so, Dr. Masanga?
Let me tell you, it is because we don't trust each other. We don't like each other. Why should South Africa kill Nigerians? Because they are very progressive. Why? Xenophobia. Why are you killing people? When the South Africans wanted passports, they used our passports in order to escape apartheid. Nigeria used to give them passports. Baba Tafawa Balewa and others. So many South Africans have Nigerian passports in order to escape apartheid. Why do they kill them in South Africa? That is the problem we have. Africans, ourselves, we have a problem. Then two, we have a problem of borders that were artificial. I'm happy that President Uhuru Kenyatta addressed this directly to South African president called Ramaphosa, Cyril Ramaphosa. Do you know that going to South Africa enters my country, Uganda, without a visa? And we stamp his passport at Entebbe Airport. But when you want to go to South Africa, even to use your own money, hard-earned money, because for me, I use hard-earned money. I've never stolen anybody's money. They tell you to bring your father's birth certificate. My father died a long time ago, and how do you tell me to bring his death certificate before South Africa? So when you reach Johannesburg Airport, you are even categorized. You see, the Bazungu who colonized them are walking there. They are even given priority. You are an African from an African country that gave them passports in order for them to escape colonialism, apartheid. They want you to fill a form and you carry all the documents, including your land title. Some of us in Africa don't have land titles. How will you get a visa to go to South Africa? That is one of the problems. South Africa uses us. It comes to Kenya, it enters free. It comes to Uganda, it enters free. But when you want to go to them, they want you to give them even your mother's title, your father's date of birth, all this. Those are the obstacles that the AU was set to remove. I was very happy when Dlamini Zuma was there. They introduced what we call an African passport. Can I tell you the country that shut down the idea? Should I tell you now? Because I'm a frank man.
No, go ahead.
Yes, and I didn't come here to sugarcoat anybody. The country that stopped the passport, the African passport, is South Africa. Yes, what can they do to me? Do I need to go there? What do I need? I don't need anything.
Was there a reason why they did that?
Because they said we, other people from other places, are going for their jobs. But are there jobs in South Africa, really? South African black ones suffer like Matanga. They only have BMW cars, which they drive around in Durban and Johannesburg, silly. They don't have anything. At least for me, I have my own car. Yes, but they don't have. If it comes to Christmas, South Africans sleep in cars. You look at have you ever been to South Africa when it's Christmas? It's a longer queue between Johannesburg and Durban because people don't have anywhere to go. They are squatters on their own land. I'm not a squatter in my country. Are you a squatter in Nigeria? No. They have not changed from apartheid. We only removed the W.P. Botha and the Clark, who has just passed away, and replaced another black Clark. We have replaced Clark.
You know, what exactly is it that the continent doesn't have? Now, let's talk about the leaders. And I also want you to talk about one leader that the continent lost, not quite long, because a lot of people thought for the first time we have started seeing more or less like, if there's a word like reincarnation, a reincarnation of some of the past leaders who were out there for the good of the people. John Magufuli, of blessed memory, I also want you to weigh in on this and tell us a bit of, is it that Africans don't have audacious, bold leaders who can actually stand for their people?
The unit of Africa begins to break from African Union. Don't jump that one. Let's not lose that more thread. African Union is rented. We have rented the African Union to France. France pays us dollars. We do what France wants, not what AU wants. You saw the mistake that Muhammad Faki, Dr. Muhammad Faki, as I talk, I want the students listening across the continent of Africa. I've sworn never to go to Addis Ababa until Muhammad Faki leaves the office. I have attended all AU meetings since I started knowing what political science is. And I went to school and I came out. I've attended all heads of state. I am invited as a special guest for African Union. But the road of African unity breaks from African Union being rented. It has been captured. It has been captured by France. You know what the French have done? If you want to do something very good, recently you saw African MPs fighting in Johannesburg. Didn't you see blows and the chairs flowing over because the French wanted to run to be the president again. And the French-speaking countries united against the English-speaking countries. Then later on, they went to blocks, ECOWAS, united with their brothers in the French-speaking countries. They wanted to molest the English-speaking country, a candidate from Zimbabwe. That's why you saw Malema and other people standing up to fight until the Zimbabwe man was allowed. The road of African disunity begins with African Union. We have a weak African Union chairperson who has sold us to France. And if General Buhari is listening and others are listening, the leaders who should come up and speak, African Union has been sold. It has been sold to the French. They pay the AU chairperson. He tells them what we do. Do you know that I did an intelligence report? I think you have read the background. I exposed African Union. They give jobs for sex. If you're a woman, you have to have sex with the chair one body before you get a job. Even men also like that.
Are this verified?
Yes. You go to my website. It is a report. It is a report that was handed over to the African Union heads of state. Go to my website of www.punchlineafrica, Pan-African Forum, LTD.com. You will find 4 reports of intelligence, well written in very good English spear English, not simple English of Muhammad Faki. It is well written. And I read it to the Kagame. I've given a report to Kagame. I gave a report to President Museveni. I gave a report to President Uhuru. There is no head of state who has not got those reports.
So what did they acknowledge? Did they say they were going to work on that?
Yes.
Are they working on it?
That's why they created African review of the African mechanism, AU functions. They reviewed. Kagame's committee was put to review. One of the recommendations that I made in the report was, why can't we be paying our own money? Why would we rely on France to come and pay for us? Then they take our secrets. Why should we have people taping our presidents?
I don't get that. You say people taping presidents.
Yes.
We're talking about having a meeting on issues around the continent, and they are being recorded.
Yes. The AU, it is there. Don't you read? Don't you read the reports? Presidents are being recorded by Alcatel company, which is a French company. It records all the things, tapping our presidents. We safeguard them in their cities, then they are tapped in the AU because the Chinese are there. Have you seen the fight, the Cold War between China and the West has come to that tall building you see in Addis Ababa? As we shall come to the war finally of Ethiopia, it has boiled down to that. I want to tell you, the students who are listening, Gaddafi would have not died. You know why?
Tell us why.
Gaddafi would have been alive if South Africa did not vote.
If South Africa did not vote.
Yes. Germany did not vote, abstained. Brazil has abstained. India abstained. The motion to bomb Libya, resolution 1990. And I want to be candid, to be on record, that one day when I'm not here, let people hear and follow this up. Resolution 1990 that bombed Libya, Germany abstained. Russia refused. China refused. Then they went back to Jacob Zuma. That's why they rot in prison all the time. Jacob Zuma, South Africa was a member of the United Nations Security Council, non-rotational member. They voted in favor. They formed what we call a mini quorum that sanctioned France to start dropping bombs on Libya. Where is Libya today? We killed Libya. Go and see my letter. Go and see my letter that I wrote to President Museveni, which for the first time in 37 years, we agreed with Museveni over that. On that letter, and I said, Your Excellency, save Gaddafi. But before you come, there is nowhere on the continent of Africa where Gaddafi's name is not there. Show me. If you come to Uganda, you have mosques, schools, hotels. Gaddafi built schools. In Zambia, there is Gaddafi. In Zimbabwe, there is Gaddafi. In South Africa, there is Gaddafi. In Kenya, there is Gaddafi. In Tanzania, there is Gaddafi. Yes, he left a legacy. He was doing things for Africa. But look at the way.
So how come the leaders, of the continent didn't see some of these good things you just highlighted that Muammar Gaddafi was doing at that time?
You know what? There were few leaders in Africa who can speak like I'm speaking. Because one of the things, I'm not a diplomat. One of the things my father told me is never to become a diplomat with a tie. He told me to be an activist, an international activist who talks about policies in Africa. And that one, I did it, and I do it. my father is very happy in the grave. Mugabe is happy in the grave that I stood for him. We lost a leader who could speak his mind. Any of the leaders in Africa who speaks their mind, they will not be liked. You know, someone comes. No, let me ask you one question. Near you, Chad. The president is slaughtered. And the following day, France carries the son and installs the son. And we have forgotten about that. Surely, in Africa, you just kill a president. Show me in Europe where we can kill any prime minister and then tomorrow you walk around free. Where are the rebels who are killing the president in Chad coming from? Doesn't the AU know the rebels? Doesn't Mr. Moussa Faki know the rebels? He knows them. They are in Egypt. They are being funded in Egypt under General Khalifa Haftar. They train there from Chad. And they are there. They said we killed him. You go and kill a president of Africa and then you walk and go back and you remain in one country. Surely, which African Union is this? We created two governments. In Libya, there is Tripoli and Benghazi. African Union has recognized Tripoli. Then why do we again talk to Mr. Khalifa Haftar? African Union has collapsed. The problems of African unity start with African Union. AU is the disuniting factor. Unless it is revamped, unless we revamp, we change the modus operandi. For example, you people, they have brought this question of condemning a coup. Why do you condemn a coup? Why don't you stop the coup? Why does African Union condemn that man? There's a madman in Guinea. What is his name? He wears glasses, darker glasses. He doesn't know what leadership is. He's ever wearing glasses. Why do you just call them when it's taken over? Make sure that those things don't exist. Let AU have biting. If you have made a mistake in AU, these are my recommendations that I made. Let's expel you. You remain out of AU. Don't say we are suspending you. You have taken a military coup to overthrow a democratically elected government. You should be expelled out of AU. Remain there, reform yourself, then reapply to come back to AU. What was the use of giving Morocco a seat in AU? When the Sahrawis have been fighting for freedom? What AU is this? People pocket money and do very bad things. That's why the AU unity, there is no African unity. We are not united at all. To go to South Africa, a Nigerian needs 2,000 documents to prove that he's a Nigerian first, then to prove that he will not stay in South Africa. A Ugandan needs 1 million documents. A Kenyan needs another 1 million documents. Why? When in Europe, they have put their one visa called Schengen visa. I think you have traveled there, you know. They're there. One visa rotates everywhere. Why did South Africa kill our passports? We don't have them. I took my photograph. I hope they have not given it to the French. I don't know where my passport is. Where is the African Union passport? South Africa came in, blocked it. So today, as we speak, the political unity of Africa is not there. There is nobody who can speak for Africa. It has been left to the Matangas and the PLO Lumumba and another lady called. There's another lady in America who tries. The rest of the people run away when they hear Joe, what is this man? The Joe Biden is coming. All of them want to fall in the Atlantic Ocean. You know, you saw the reception, Secretary of State arrives. In Kenya, he told a lie. In Nigeria, he told the truth about Chinese hitting Kenya because we take loans. That is the type of double standards. We have lost our unity.
Now let's start talking about some of the key things we'll do. But before that,
And before you go, you talked about Magufuli.
Oh yeah, we haven't said anything about John Magufuli.
I want to say something.
Yeah.
On Saturday, I wrote something about Magufuli. I borrowed it a bit from a friend, and I used my brain. I always give credit where it is. I used most of my brain to say this is what Magufuli, what we are having another Magufuli in Africa in the name of Uhuru Kenyatta. He says it. Yes, you hate him. Hate Uhuru Kenyatta, but he tells you. Uhuru Kenyatta on Friday, on Thursday, told Cyril Ramaphosa in his eyes that the borders are a prison. Why do you, my brother, put borders, yet you did not make the borders? That is another Magufuli. Obama came to Kenya and I wanted Kenyatta to take, because he comes from Kenya. His father comes from here. Then he came to lecture to Uhuru Kenyatta that you can change rules, that everybody has got to have human rights, which we don't want to discuss here, and our radio is banned in Europe to be listened to. You know, Uhuru said, no, we shall take what is good for Africa, and what is bad for Africa, we shall leave it out. He is coming up as one of the Pan-Africanists. Africanists we have. Museveni is a good Pan-African. I give a credit where it's due. I disagree with him on internal dynamics of democracy. But democracy is not I cannot blame Museveni for bad democracy, because democracy in Africa is only 66 years old. We can't compare it, Suleiman, yes, with democracy of 250 years old. Sorry. We have to give it a credit where it is due. But when it comes to Pan-African issues, Museveni is outright. He used to speak, and he speaks for Pan-Africanism. When you want to send troops to Somalia, Museveni did so. The UN did not want Museveni to send troops to Somalia, but he took troops, Ugandan troops. We have the biggest contingent of troops. In fact, if they allowed us to go to finish those men in Somalia, they would be in Indian Ocean today. We have no mercy. And the other day, the man from Guinea thought we are joking. We don't joke. If ECOWAS doesn't, if he allowed us, we would have already gone down with that man in Guinea. Museveni has got that Pan-African muscle that we want. There are leaders coming up after Mugabe's departure who was telling the truth. But then the mistake, look at Magufuli. There's one thing that Magufuli did, and he left a legacy. He has left a legacy of fighting corruption. In Tanzania, corruption today, if you touch the government money, brother, you have to spend some time. The lady has followed the same. And some of us are giving the lady advice that don't slide. You know, where you see Tony Blair coming to be your consultant, run very fast, because Tony Blair always gives wrong advice on African issues. You know, and the problem you talked about, the problem, Mohammed. One of the problems, Suleiman, yes, one of the problems that we have in Africa is our black people respect more white black professors than we black ones. They respect white professors than Dr. Matsanga. When I warned the people about the war in Ethiopia, it was coming, and I said it was very wrong for the Prime Minister of Ethiopia to have shaken hands with another president called Isaias Afwerki, who is a terrorist anyway, because he harbors terrorism. People thought I was wrong. Now I've been vindicated. The troops, as we speak, we don't know. Ethiopia is under siege from all angles. There is no unity of purpose in Africa and African Union. You can go where the Magufuli tried, he left us halfway. He was hated. He was given embargo. The European Union gave sanctions. Look at the way they have molested Zimbabwe. What has Zimbabwe done, which South Africa has not done the best? And you see, all the problem of South Africa are coming from land. Zimbabwe has given land, and I'm sure that Obasanjo, when he was a head of state, took some white commercial farmers to his Yoruba. Is he from Yoruba land? Yes, they are there. Go and see the white commercial farmers that Obasanjo took to Nigeria. So Obasanjo shocked me in the Melbourne House when we want the group of Troika. I was there in the Troika with Dlamini Zuma and Mbeki. He voted for sanctions against Zimbabwe, to have sanctions in the name of God. I couldn't believe an African leader voting for another African leader to have sanctions. In the Melbourne House, he voted with Prime Minister Howard, two of them against one. Mbeki remained. I could not believe it. And I respect an editor, but that is it today. I've been telling you piece by pieces. Me, I tell it as it is.
Let me, sorry to cut you, because I decided for us to take this this long before we bring in some of those who are listening to us across the continent. We have some messages here, and one is from Malachi. Malachi is from Ota. And he says, greetings to you, Dr. Masanga. I believe that international diplomacy is total hypocrisy. Also, Africa has remained a place for domination by the Western powers. Then there are a lot of them. Let's see the much we can take. And another here says, what does he have to say about the American role in Gaddafi's death and Libya's destruction? And well, I hope you don't forget that. Too quickly, I want you to talk about that. Then this here says, I laugh when I hear phrases or slogans or words like African unity. Such can never be realized. Most African nations, like Judas Iscariot in the Bible, will betray anyone that wants to champion the cause. That is what brought down Gaddafi and Libya after he spent billions of dollars to see that Africans are united. My question is, can Africa resist the Western invasion? That is from Boyega Adedeji. Another one here says, Slyman, this is deep and revealing coming from Dr. Masanga. God bless you. I hope people are listening. Very unfortunate for Africa. This is from Achi. Achi, thank you very much. And this other one here says, Africa will continue to nosedive for as long as African leaders continue to take solutions to African challenges from our competitors, the West. For Africa to think that the West, through their tools like the IMF, the World Bank, the United Nations, NGOs funded by the same West, will provide solutions that would make the continent measure up to the West, is to joke with such serious issues. This is from Abu Otene. I think I'll just take one last one and let you wrap up, and so that we can touch on Ethiopia and close. Please, can you give us Dr. Masanga's website? He's inspirational. Dr. Masanga, I want you to go start from the last. Give them your website again.
My website is www.PanAfricanForum LTD, Lima Tango Denmark.com. PanAfricanForum LTD.com. You will find everything that Obasanjo has done is there, including Taylor, the handing over Taylor, the worst things Africa has had, the Gaddafi killings, the letters that I've written, students that study African politics and history in master's degree and a PhD. Use that website for education. Okay, I have seen 4 questions. Good. I will wrap them in one.
All right.
It starts with the American. What role did America play? Of course, America tried to stand on the periphery, saying that they will not send any troops on the ground, but they will send planes. But America is part of NATO. The NATO forces, NATO forces, were led by France. America had already voted together with France. The only country in Europe that abandoned, there were two countries in Europe, I don't remember the second one, but Germany, as a non-rotating member, abstained. Brazil abstained. Several other countries, India abstained. The motion was going to collapse. But we had South Africa coming in to support Americans and the French. I don't know how much Zuma was paid. And that is how the bomb started under Resolution 1970. The second thing, how can we resist the money from IMF, World Bank? It is very difficult to resist the money when you are poor yourself. There's a problem of us. Do you know that Congo is richer than Europe 2 million times? But the leadership, we have very bad leadership on the continent of Africa. There are people in Congo who don't know that Mobutu died because their leaders have kept them like that. They don't know that Mobutu died a long time ago. They think they are voting Mobutu. That it is Tshisekedi, even Kabila has gone. So there is ignorance in Africa. We actually all the time, a country like Congo, it does not need to exist the way it is because it has a lot of resources, mineral resources. It will always be the headache of Africa. All the time, whether you bring a good president, it will be the headache. So how do we resist? We better start integration. We better start African unity. We better start opening the borders. You know why the borders cannot be opened? European Union comes in and says, don't open, don't agree to allow a Nigerian to go to South Africa. We shall build you a hospital. And that's it. The government in South Africa agrees. They put a visa ban on Nigerians. Yet Nigerians are very enterprising. Nigerians, Somalis are very enterprising. Everywhere in South Africa, if you go, in corners, Somalis are the most enterprising people. But they are being killed by the South Africans who apparently are very lazy. They are very lazy people. They sleep up to midnight, midday. They wake up only to look for drink and alcohol. When they see Nigerians waking up very early in the morning, they term them as drug dealers. You see, that's it. That is what they have killed Nigerians there. And it almost brought it to a blow up of a war between the two countries. Another point is that Gaddafi was a very good man. But one of the problems that we have, I am a friend of the Sun. I fought for the Sun in the ICC. And I've written letters against the ICC to say the ICC should indict the terrorists who came to remove Gaddafi, but not the people who were defending themselves. And I'm still there. I have helped that boy to come to where, and I want to thank the British government for standing up for that boy because he is part and parcel of us. He studied in the London School of Economics. I know him very well. But one of the problems that Gaddafi made was to show too much of his money to Sarkozy. It is Sarkozy who betrayed Gaddafi. Gaddafi should have banked his money in Kampala. Nobody would have had a problem. He went and bought AC Milan. How do you play? Excuse me, you Africans. One of the things, have you read the book, The Lion and the Jewel by Wole Soyinka? If you have not read it as a student, go and pick a copy. Read again and see who you are.
We can't leave without talking about Ethiopia, even though we have just about 2 minutes to go. Ethiopia and the Tigray. A lot of people are disturbed, and it's a shame that that the AU hasn't actually been able to settle that matter. Let us in on if you can get a solution to the crisis in Ethiopia.
Let me tell you, since time is gone, the whole question of Ethiopia is bad mediation led by General Obasanjo. Is a very bad mediator. He has been told, the Ethiopian government has told him that they will not negotiate with the rebels, calling Tigray people rebels. He should have come back and told the whole African Union that there is a problem. There is nothing that Dr. Obasanjo, General Obasanjo, is going to achieve. Not a single thing or nothing. The rebels are only 80 kilometers, maybe 20, near the capital city. Okay? The government has also gone to the bush to fight the rebels. So General bad mediation, that is one. Two, that is AU again. It goes back to the African Union. They should have put a good mediator like a General Chisano. These are people who have mediated and got a peace that we see in Madagascar. The Madagascar has never gone back to fight again. The bad mediation. Point number two, the dam acts very as a crucial point. A Cold War has been brought on Africa. After the collapse of Afghanistan, the Americans have been looking for another place where they can play their politics, and they have found a breeding ground. Why they are calling everybody to leave Addis Ababa is because they have found a breeding ground where they will fight a Cold War with China. China built the dam. China influence in that region. China gave us an African Union house. It is a very big envy when you go to Addis Ababa. It is the tallest building in Addis Ababa. And when they look at it, they are not very happy. So a Cold War is playing in the politics, external. A proxy war also is being played. Forces that don't like Dr. Abiy Ahmed. You remember he's an NGO man. He has never been in leadership anywhere. He only knows civil society NGO. At least for me, Matanga, I'm a political scientist. I can govern a state if I'm given. But he did not know. He erred. He has become too nationalistic, calling his people to go and die like a Matthias on the front line, that come and die. So there is somebody pumping arms into Tigray. And the other day we are on your show, one of your shows, someone was saying it is not right. The following morning, you saw Al Jazeera displaying satellite drops. So I don't talk the truth, lies. By the way, I am a member of the International Institute of Strategic Studies, a life member.
You know, Dr. Masanga, sorry to cut you there. Sorry to cut you because we're out of time, but I just want you to let Africa know if you oblige us another time so that we can have a second part of this conversation.
I am always ready anytime. As long as I'm still alive, I will speak, defend, protect the integrity of Pan-Africanism. The Pan-African dream is in me. The dream of Kwame Nkrumah, Nyerere, Obote, Jomo Kenyatta is in me. I will defend, I will die like a Karl Marx. I don't have big houses. Karl Marx died without a house. And when you come for my burial, pray for me and pray for Africa.
It's a fine place for us to leave it today. Dr. David Masanga, African affairs analyst and a strong Africanist who has been speaking with us today on the Discuss Today, live from Nairobi, Kenya. And he's agreed live on the show that he will be back again, yes, to talk more on how we can forge ahead as Africans. So once again, thank you for being such nice company. Okay, I'm Sulaiman. Bye-bye.
Thank you.